From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Great. Madam Council, report taken on actions in closed session.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason and members of the board. Today, your board heard items 35 through 39 in closed session. No reportable action was taken on any of them, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Madam Council. We'll start off with the meeting with a review of the consent agenda. Agendas are located on the tables by the doors as you enter the room. All items listed with a CA above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the board or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anybody, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So going through our agenda, under departmental requests, Planning and Natural Resources Department, items 4 and 5, Administration and Engineering, items 6 and 7, under Public Works Department, Building and Development, items number 8, County Administrative Office, number 9, General Services Division, 10, 12, under Human Resources Division, item 13, consideration of ordinance introduced on October 11, 2016, number 14, matters for executive approval 15 through 19. Does any member of the public wish to pull any of these items off the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, number 1, public requests. That's for a request of Mr. Mark Blakeman, Senior Vice President, and Ms. Barbara Wynn, Director, AT&T External Affairs, to address the board concerning AT&T's efforts in Kern County on the Connect America Fund 2 project regarding expanding broadband services to rural communities. Sir, please state your name and then go for it.
Sure. My name is Mark Blakeman. I am the Vice President of External Affairs for AT&T California. I'm joined here also with Barb Wynn, who is our Area Director of External Affairs, who covers Kern County for us. And I'm here, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Supervisors. I'm here to talk about the Connect America Fund Phase 2 funding that AT&T accepted. It's a federal program. And to walk very quickly through what our plans are for Kern County at AT&T, and then to take any questions that you might have. So very quickly, what is CAF Phase 2? The FCC created comprehensive reforms of its Universal Service Fund and intercarrier compensation systems in order to accelerate the broadband build-out to approximately 23 million Americans who lack the access to infrastructure that's capable of providing 10 megabits per second, one up, 1 megabit down, fixed broadband. The existing USF was transformed into the new Connect America Fund and focused solely on bringing this broadband to unserved and underserved areas. The FCC analyzed every single census block in the country to determine whether they were unserved or underserved, and then created under this Phase 2 a subsidy for carriers such as AT&T to take advantage of in order to build out this infrastructure. Areas were either deemed high cost, which is what the CAF 2 subsidy is made for, or extremely high cost, and I'll get the definitions and show you what that means for Kern County in a later slide, but that will be addressed by another set of funding at a later time. If a company is going to take advantage of these subsidies, they have some obligations that they must meet. First, they must meet or exceed speeds of 10 megabits per second down, 1 megabit per second up, latency of 100 milliseconds or less round trip, and that means basically when you hit enter on the computer, how long does it take the information to come back to you, and 100 milliseconds is roughly the blink of an eye. We have to have minimum usage allowance of 150 gigs per month, so we cannot cap cap your usage until you've exceeded 150 gigs per month. And then there must be, the rates must be similar to what is charged for comparable service in fixed wireline urban rates, or no more than the FCC annual rate benchmark, which is right now $72 a month. And I can tell you that our fixed wireline urban rates are much lower than that, even though the rates have not been set yet. We're much lower than the $72 a month. And then finally, there are specific deployment milestone dates. So we have to complete 40% of our build out by the end of next year, 60% by the end of 2018, 80% by the year of 2019, and then have the build out complete by 2020. I put 2021 up there because there is an option that if there are extenuating circumstances, we can petition for an extra year if we can prove that a county was holding up permits, or if they had a difficulty in citing something because of environmental concerns or whatnot. We also must continue to offer voice service. We have to continue to participate in Lifeline. We're required to bid on all E-rate RFPs in the CAF2 census blocks, and we're subject to annual speed and latency performance testing and at least one audit per state during the funding term. And while I said that there's a high cost and extremely high cost, we are allowed to build out and serve the extremely high cost, but we have to do it with the CAF2 monies, and then if we do that, we can get credit for it, but we cannot go back later and ask the government for more money when phase 3 becomes available. Who is eligible for this funding? This phase 2 was initially made available to all of the incumbent local exchange carriers that were under rate of return regulation, which probably means nothing to you, but that means AT&T, Verizon at the time, and Consolidated Communications. At the time this program was started, Frontier was in the process of purchasing assets from Verizon, but Verizon accepted the money on Frontier's behalf. And the money that we did accept has to be used in the state that we accept it, and we must meet the household requirements on a state-by-state basis. So we can't take the money and go build in Texas or Florida. We have to use the money for California in California. And so what did we accept? AT&T in August of 2015 took $427 million per year for the next 6 years to build out this infrastructure in 18 of our 21 states that we do business in. And about 60 million of that is for California specifically. And as I stated, we have to spend that money in the state that we accepted it for, and in California that means that we have to build out to 141,500 homes and small businesses in the FCC identified census blocks again by the year 2020. So how are we going to do that, and what does that mean for Kern County? So we're going to be using a technology called fixed wireless internet. So if you imagine how we provide service, it's through a landline, either copper or fiber that's in the ground or on a telephone pole to get to your home. In this case, we'll be using wireless technology to get to these homes that cannot get served today or are underserved today, to deliver what we call the last mile connection. It'll be a fixed solution, so the spectrum will be beamed directly to their home for their home, and we are testing this now in several states, and we're able to support speeds well in excess of the 10.1 requirement by the FCC, and we'll also be able to bundle other AT&T products that people want. If they want video or wireless service or voice service on top of that, we can provide that in a bundle if they wish, but we do have to sell it as a standalone as well. And it will require 2 pieces of equipment at the premise. On the left is what we affectionately call the pizza box, but this is a cellular antenna that would be affixed generally to the side of your house or to the roof of your house, where the spectrum would be beamed to from a wireless antenna elsewhere in the county. And then that would be hardwired to a router that's inside your home, and that's what you see on the right. To do this, AT&T is going to be building out 3 different types of infrastructure. First is where you are going to identify where we currently have existing AT&T cell towers and cell sites in your county, and we're going to be putting additional radios and antennas on those existing antennas to serve this new population of households. Second, we will be going to places that where we do not have facilities currently, but there may be existing cell towers or antenna that we would then go out and put our equipment on. And then finally, we would have to build from scratch a new cell site in order to serve the customers. And I'll run through these very quickly. The next ones are some photos. So here's an existing cell site. I've purposely picked some not so attractive ones so you can actually see the difference. But if you look in the right-hand side, that's the existing cell antenna, and then that is with the new antennas put on. So you can see, if I'm just going to toggle back and forth here for a second, you can see the antennas are a little bit larger, but fairly invisible to the naked eye, certainly from a distance and the height. Here's another example. Here's the existing, and again, here's the new, and you can see that they've put on some additional equipment when I toggle back and forth. On the upper left-hand side, an existing, and again, with the new radios and antenna put on there. The second example is where we have somebody else has a cell tower in the county. This is an example of one of our competitors' cell towers, and we would go in and co-locate, and we put a new array. The other advantage of this program, in addition to providing the fixed wireless internet service to customers that are underserved today, when we're building a new site or putting equipment on a new antenna site, we'll be adding LTE 4G service for our wireless customers as well. So the county will get somewhat of a twofer. Not only will these underserved homes be able to get broadband speeds that they hadn't been able to get before, but now it will also improve the wireless service for AT&T customers throughout the county. So our engineers have taken a look at your county, and we have identified that there are 14 existing AT&T cell sites that we'll need to modify with the equipment and the new antenna, and we'll need to build 46 new antenna throughout the county in order to serve those populations that cannot get the broadband speeds today. So again, this is I would categorize it as a wish list, but it's not final, and we hope to work with the county to be able to determine where best to put this. But this is, if we could build in these locations, and I will show you on a map where they are, this would allow us to serve the maximum number of households as possible. So topography, elevation, environment, distance, the density of eligible homes all factor into how many sites that we need and where we need them. So if you have lots of peaks and valleys, you're going to need more cell towers to reach all those valleys that you have. And I would just add that moving a cell site even 100 feet can oftentimes impact that site's range and the serving area. So if you move a cell site beyond where we've determined is optimum, we obviously can do that, but it may mean cutting off some eligible households when we do that. So there's a series of maps here, and I'll overlay things on top of them. So this first map is your county. The yellow that you see there is the AT&T service territory. So this is the area that we are obligated under the California Public Utilities Commission to provide telephone service in today. I've added, if you can look at the green hash marks, so these are all of the census blocks that are deemed CAF2 eligible. So this is the universe that we're trying to build to. These census blocks with the green hashtags in them in the yellow area are our customers today that cannot get broadband speeds at the 10.1 speed or cannot get it at all.
Can you say that last sentence again?
So
tell me what the green crosses are.
The green cross marks are the areas where the subsidy has been available, and the government is saying, if we're going to give you this money, but you need to serve homes in these green hashtag areas, because these are the areas that we have determined either, we meaning the federal government has determined either have no broadband today or have it but not at speeds of in excess of 10.1. So they're underserved or unserved areas right now. I add on here, you'll see the dark orange, so there's the green and the dark orange. The dark orange areas are the census blocks that the FCC has identified as extremely high cost. Again, if we can serve some of these and we can take credit and use the money for that, but there will be another round of funding from the federal government for subsidies for these areas as well. So we may be serving some of these areas as well, but the green hashtag that you see here is the area that we're really going to be focused on. And the last map, and I would make mention, I've redacted this from the packet that we gave because we don't like to publicly have pieces of paper that show where all of our infrastructure is. But you will see on the map on your screens, there are 14 blue dots, and I will, Supervisor Perez, I'll try to go over your head here so that I'm not blinding you, but you can see there's one here, here, here. These blue dots are existing AT&T cell sites where we will be putting the modifications in. So again, these sites are right here, 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 up here. And then and it's probably best to toggle back and forth here. There's the other thing are there are 46 red splotches, if you will, and I'll toggle back and you can see them pop up here when I toggle back and forth on your screen. Those 46 splotches are the census blocks that we would like to build a new cell tower in order to serve those green hashtag areas with the service. So there are 46 locations throughout the county where we would need to put new cell towers to provide the fixed wireless internet, and then also those 46 would get LTE service as well to improve the AT&T wireless service as well. So I ran through that, Mr. Chairman, very quickly so that we could leave time for questions, but the ask that we have of the county is a fairly simple one. We would like to work with the county to collaborate on streamlining the process on the modifications. Again, not asking for any change in law or anything, but to sit down with your staff and to begin having conversations on those 14 sites that we need to modify. And when I say to streamline it, I mean, so asking your planning department or your public works department, you know, how do you want to see these permits submitted? Like, how do you want us to order the pages? How do you want us to label things to make it as efficient as possible for you to review these? Is there any way that we can help streamline that process so that we're showing you the same thing the same way every time so you know what you're looking at? The second thing, and when I go back to this slide, on those 46 splotches, if there's any government-owned land, we'd love for you to be our landlord and love to pay you rent in order to build on those sites. So we're working again with staff to identify if there's any government-owned land that we might be able to build on. And then finally, if there's no government land, you maybe will know who the landlords are in those areas, and maybe you can help open some doors for us in identifying potential landlords. And then finally, on the new sites, anything that we can do, again, to streamline the process so that we're providing you and your staff with the information that you want in the way that you want it so that we can make it as efficient as possible. So with that, I will open it up to questions or however you want to handle this, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Blake.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Standing, we might have some questions for you. I got a bunch.
Okay.
Okay, I don't understand half the stuff.
Okay, sorry.
So let me see if I can get to it understanding. You got $60 million coming from the state of California to install broadband into select areas of your company's service areas.
It's from the federal government to
The FCC is
yeah.
giving you $60 million, and you're taking that $60 million. How much of that $60 million is going to Kern County?
I don't know yet because each cell site will be different and what it's going to cost. I will tell you this, we're spending well in addition to $60 million a year because we're augmenting it with the AT&T money as well.
How can you convince me, I'm not doubting that you are, but how can you convince me that the allocation that Kern County is getting for its distribution of $60 million is fair?
So first of all, it's not a Kern County, it's not a county by county decision. It's a statewide decision. So we have to build to 141,500 homes in the state of California by the year 2020. There are 250,000 eligible homes and small businesses in the state. So the subsidy takes into account that we're not going to build to everyone in the state of California and all the eligible districts in our territory. So what I come here today is to let you know, here's our plan for Kern County. Here's what we'd like to do, where you would like to, and I can tell you this is probably Kern County's, if it's not the most, it's one of the top 2 in the number of new cell sites that we're building in the state of California because of the density of homes that you have there. So there is no guarantee, but the only thing I would ask is the more that we can collaborate and start working on this, and the faster we can build it, the better, because again, we have these deadlines that the federal government has set, and so we will be meeting those. Whether we meet them in Kern County or somewhere else is part up to the county.
Thanks. I'm sure Kern County is going to be excited to work with you and welcoming and bringing this service to the underserved, because that's an established need. You talked about landline, last mile. My understanding of last mile is based off a fiber optic backbone that runs, for example, in eastern Kern, it goes from Reno to Basto, and then it stops along the way. It provides services to what's called GEMS, Government Emergency Medical and Safety Organizations, primarily. But the last mile is about getting access to private enterprises and private individuals and homes and businesses from where they live and where they provide their business service to that access point on the fiber optic.
That's good.
Is that the same thing we're talking about here?
Kind of. If I could just clarify a couple things. So we do have fiber backbone up and down the state that connects all of our central offices throughout the state of California. The last mile, the term that we use, is going from the central office to individual customers' homes or businesses.
Oh. Were you done?
Yeah.
Okay, so taking fiber optic speeds are exponentially faster than 10 to 1 than what you have. Fiber optic speeds are what? Do you know? Do you have an idea?
Well, the fiber optic speeds can again, it's on what you buy, but we just announced earlier today that we're offering in Bakersfield 1,000 megabits per second on our fiber service.
Would customers in the green hatched areas have access to those speeds?
Not necessarily, no. They would. So right now they're unserved, so they have nothing. A lot of people have
all
no.
Those people in the green hatched areas don't have broadband?
The federal government has determined that the households in there either do not have access to broadband or have access at speeds below 10 to 1. Sure can. So there's the green.
So all those people in the green hatched areas, you're saying to me the government has determined that they do not have access to broadband?
Yes, that's correct.
And you determine broadband to be at a rate of 10 megabits down and 1 up?
I don't determine that. The FCC determined that.
FCC determined that. I notice, so there's a difference between what I'm thinking in my head about last mile and what you're presenting, because you're presenting speeds of 10 and 1. I think fiber optics is significantly higher than that,
So we're not talking about fiber optics here, so I want to be very clear. So we have an obligation to provide dial tone to any household or business that opens up in that yellow area on that map.
Got it.
And we do that today, and we have that obligation. So no matter where you build, and it doesn't matter if it costs us $100,000 to build that copper wire to your house or $10 to build, we are obligated to do that under state law. But we are not obligated to provide broadband under state law. So there are a lot of people that have dial tone, that have working telephone service, but do not have an internet service either on a wireline basis. So we're looking at just the wireline basis. Some people might have wireless devices that can get the speeds at that high, but wireline basis only cannot get those speeds today. Great. And so this is a project that the government has undertaken to bring those broadband speeds of 10.1 to these people in those green hashtag areas.
So the people living in the green hashtag areas have an opportunity to get a significant improvement in their internet capability.
That's absolutely correct.
And that's the fundamental reason why we're doing all this.
Absolutely.
I see Eastern Kern is not as many green hash marks. How come?
Because the federal government has determined that they, so are you talking about the eastern part in the yellow or the eastern part in the white?
Eastern part in the white.
So that's a different phone company that services that area.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so.
Okay, I was wondering, okay, I have a different phone company.
But we have put the green hashtags for that phone company as well. So those are the areas, well, let me go up one. You'll see there's a lot of orange in that area, right, because that's the extremely high cost area. So that's another round of funding that will come sometime in the future. The government hasn't determined that yet.
This is exciting because you say that your timeline is 2017, 40%, 2018, 60.
Yep.
So this is really, so people in Kern River Valley, for example, you're going to put up a couple of antennas someplace and they're going to be able to purchase some product off you for minimum price.
Yep.
And they're going to be able to get improved broadband, which they are desperately in need of. Because I think what you're doing is it's like building the highway system in the 40s.
Yeah.
We connected America, and I think the FCC is undergoing that, and I think it's going to be a significant ability for economic development in places that don't have that broadband to achieve that. So I'm applauding what your effort is.
Great. I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, when in the areas where we're testing this now, it's hard for some people to relate to. I go home every night and get on my computer at my house and have great speeds and whatnot, but if you go home and have no connectivity whatsoever,
right.
You can't do email, you can't stream a video, you can't play a video game, you can do nothing. It's really a life-changing project for them because it's bringing them something that they absolutely don't have today.
Two more final questions.
Sure.
What does LTE mean?
LTE is fourth generation, long-term evolution. It's the fourth generation of cell phone networks, and it's the fastest speeds available today on the wireless network.
What are we going to do? My last question is this. What are we going to do when FCC spent $60 million upgrading from where we are today to this new 10-to-1, and the technology's changing so fast? So before you even finish this program, there's probably going to be additional programs coming in making this obsolete. Do you agree with that? And what are you doing to guard against that?
Well, I don't want to talk about the obsolescence of the product, but the bottom line is here's people that have nothing today, and it's bringing them 10-1 speeds. As I mentioned earlier today, I was making an announcement that we're doing 1,000 download speeds here in some parts of Bakersfield. So obviously there are greater speeds already available to people, but going from nothing to this is going to be a game changer. And also, I think the other key thing is it's going to improve wireless service. So even when I go home on my wired service, on my wireless service, I can often get twice the speeds that I can on my wired service because I'm sitting next to an AT&T cell tower that's about 1,000 feet from my house. And the
Top of your head glow green when you...
well, you can see what...
You're like me. I know mine does. Okay. Ms. Blakeman, you've done a great job.
All right,
Very
thank
thankful
you.
for your presentation. Any other questions from board members? Supervisor Merritt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Blakeman, thank you for your information you've shared with us. What is your company's policy? Well, let me back up for just a second. Not everybody in the world thinks that cell towers are attractive.
Right.
You're going to build a lot more cell towers.
Mm-hmm.
What is your company's policy with regard to how to mask those cell towers so they don't just look like cell towers?
A great question. I'm very proud of the work that my company does to work collaboratively with the community and with city and county staffs all over, not only California, but the country, to do our best to shield those, to make them look, we can make them look like trees. We've made them look like pencils in schoolyards. We've done, there's a myriad of things that we can do to disguise the cell towers. So we would be happy to work with individual property owners, with the county, and with your zoning department to try and make those as stealth as possible.
So is the policy of your company to do nothing to mask them unless the local jurisdiction asks you or demands of you to do that?
I wouldn't say it's to do nothing, but we, in some
You
cases,
don't mask them unless we ask you?
Well, it's not a black or white question like that. So in the collaboration process, whenever we build one of these, we have to go through a zoning process to do so. And so it's taking into account your local ordinances and your local laws, what things that you may require. Again, it's a collaborative process that we sit down and talk about the locations where some things require stealthing, some things don't, some things require different types of stealthing. So again, it's a collaborative process.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question of Ms. Oviatt, our planning director.
Please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you tell us, do we have in place a policy in the county for unincorporated areas that cell phone towers, newly constructed cell phone towers, will have some effort to obfuscate them or mask them in some way?
They are required to be stealthed. We also require landscaping, although because of water restrictions, we've been working to do drop-tolerant kinds of landscaping, and these are routine variances that are asked by AT&T.
Okay, so this is not an action item, and he's not asking us, he wants us to think about it, but it's just to receive and file for a report. So when this comes back to us for action, for us to do what he's asking us to do, he's going to pose that question to us about streamlining and facilitating and all that stuff. Can you bring at the same time an update so the public will understand what stealth measures are in place and what will be expected so that the public will get both sides of that?
Supervisor Maggard, through the chair, I can. If these 46 new towers are on private property, they all require conditional use permits. And they would be required to go to a planning commission and would be conditioned. If they are on county, I apologize.
No, you go right ahead.
If they are on county property, there is a different process.
I'm sure that's the process that Mr. Blakeman would like us to streamline as much as possible.
Honestly, I didn't know that there was a different process, but if it's a faster process, yes, I would love to streamline it that way.
So when we have that discussion about that, I just want us to have an understanding by the board and the public that is interested what stealth efforts will be in place to try to mask these, because it's a lot of the public never thinks about it, but boy, if you live in the shadow of one, it's a big deal if it's right in the middle of your view that I represent much of Northeast Bakersfield, which has a view of everything else around here, and so that's a bigger issue where I.
So Supervisor, if I may, I put the picture up on the screen. I purposely picked pictures that aren't stealth so you can actually see the equipment.
Yeah.
But here's an example of what your planning director mentioned. In a lot of cases, we are required to put landscaping at the bottom. You'll see the equipment for the carriers there to landscape around that, so that can't be seen. And then also to stealth, again, this pole could be a pine tree, a eucalyptus tree, whatever you may determine that you would fit into the landscape that you would like to see.
I appreciate your openness to that, and Ms. Oviatt, thank you for bringing that information to us when we have a discussion about this. Thank you.
Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. I'm supportive of that as well. I would like staff to, when you're thinking about this, to pay attention to our libraries and how those are county-owned, and if those have the potential for a siting of these facilities. And if we can, I don't know where we stand in obtaining broadband service at all the, or 4G or whatever they call it, whatever the best is these days, high-speed internet at all the libraries, but if that could be part of the package in a negotiation, I'd be interested in that. Thank you.
I just want to agree with Supervisor Maggard's comments. Not just Northeast Bakersfield, but there's a lot of areas in the county that are scenic, and there's a lot of sensitivity to the cellular tower siting, and so we'll be, I'm sure, working with you in that process. But thank you for bringing this forward. It's definitely a need that we have, particularly in my district in the rural areas where connectivity is an issue. So thank you for the presentation, and look forward to working with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blakeman.
All right, thank you.
Brings us to item number 2, public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on the agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct the staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Speakers limited to 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name before you speak. Seeing no takers, I'll bring it back for board member. Mr. Fox, did you raise your hand? I'll bring it back for board member announcements. Yes, sir.
I have one announcement, and that is my office is conducting a fundraising effort for our Pets for Vets program, and it consists of 2 separate events. One of which requires tickets. Many of you know that Tahoe Joe's, you can buy a $20 ticket for a lunch or a dinner, and a portion of those proceeds will go towards a charity, and in this case it would be Pets for Vets. You can obtain tickets either through my office, through the county animal shelter, or through the county veteran services, I believe. So if you'd like a ticket, I'm happy to get you one. And also now that's November the 9th. November the 11th at the Broken Yoke, you don't need a ticket. You just have to go to the restaurant. You have to have lunch, breakfast or lunch. They don't serve dinner. And a portion, I believe it's 10% of the proceeds, will go towards the Pets for Vets program. So I will be reminding you of this, and if I can get them to give me some lunches early on November the 8th, I'll be buying the board lunch at our Tuesday meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is the broken yolk thing where you're going to eat like a 10-pound omelet?
They have that as a challenge. If you go in and eat it entirely, it's free. I would dare you to even give it a shot.
Not me, thank you.
Okay, seeing no more board member announcements, we will move on to item number 11, adopt Kern County Agricultural Land Conservation Program. Mr. Pratwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item we're requesting this item be withdrawn today and brought back to your board at a later date.
Thank you, sir. So item number 11 is withdrawn. Appreciate it. Is there any member of the County Council?
Chairman Gleason and members of the board, you might want to ask if there is anybody in the audience that wishes to talk today in public, and they can do so. Otherwise, they are free to come back and speak to your board when the matter is brought back to your board.
Thank you. Let's do that. Let's ask the public for their comments on item 11, which has been withdrawn.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sophie Mulholland, and I am the president, CEO of Sequoia Riverlands Trust, which is a land trust that spans from Merced down through the Tehachapi's. We're doing a lot of work also on the Carrizo Plains. I originally was going to give you a little bit of history on how we were involved in the original plan, but I'd rather save that till a different time and just bring up a couple of points that I hope can come through before we have this hearing again. And the first thing I would say is it really matters if we have a little more time. I was in Sacramento on business. I got a call on Thursday night saying it was going to be heard today. My biologist was up on a project with Fish and Wildlife. She had to work all day Sunday. We didn't receive where these sites were going to be until Thursday night. So it really helps us if we can get some information beforehand. Yesterday, we've been asking for the public records. We asked in 2015. We asked again in September. We got them yesterday, 17 boxes. I have pictures of it. Said, here, go through it. There was no way that gave us adequate time. So we're really asking to give us a little bit of notice. And then I just have a couple other things that I hope will come forward as we move forward and look at different things. One of them is we would like to be able to see the biological reports, which we couldn't find any because a lot of the changes that were mentioned, we didn't have any backup to those. So we'd also like to see justifications for changes in the original EIR, and I'm now speaking about the Antelope Valley Mitigation Plan. It called for prime ag land, and the sites seem to be actually not even good urban open space. The original plan calls for a conservation easement, and yet it's in the plan it was going to be a covenant, and that's a big change. It called for nesting siting within 10 miles, and it was changed to just viewing siting of a bird within 10 miles, and the acreage was reduced from 3,500 to 2,900. So to get all that information on Thursday night and try and get the adequate parties together to be able to respond in a meaningful way was almost impossible. My biologist, she could only get to 10 of the sites working all day Sunday. So notice by staff would be really appreciated, and we have a large contingency that would like to be involved in this process. We have a lot of experience. That's what we do for a living, and we would really appreciate being brought into the process and not just sort of the latecomers at the table. Thank you very much. I'm available for questions of anyone.
I don't see any at the present time, but
Okay.
grab a seat. You may have some.
Thank you.
My name is Gordon Knipp. I'm the vice chair of the local Sierra Club, and I just want to point out that we didn't find out about this until we saw the staff report, I guess, last Thursday, and so we really haven't had much of a chance to prepare, and we have more questions than we have answers. And I just want to mention a couple of points here that sort of stick out in my mind. First of all, the county accepted $14.3 million from the developer back in 2012 in order to do this mitigation. and mitigation for farmland loss, mitigation for loss of Swainson's hawk habitat, foraging habitat in particular. It seems as if what's going to happen here is that the county is going to use that $14.3 million to pay itself to put on some sort of restrictions to some county land. That seems to be what's being proposed. It's not totally clear to me. But if that is the case, if the county is going to be using that $14.3 million that the county has at this point to pay itself, then it seems to me that in the interest of transparency, the county really should come up with a really good accounting for the way that it uses this money. For example, how much of this $14.3 million is really going to be spent on this program? And how is it going to be spent? Can it be justified to spend it that way? If there's money left over, it seems to me that it's only ethical to give the money back to the developer rather than for the county to absorb it into the general fund. So there are questions like this that I think have to be addressed, and I think the county needs to be especially careful here to be transparent in how it's using this money and justifying how it's using it. Another point that I think is worthy of consideration here. Part of this process of this proposal is to start a new Kern County agricultural land conservation program. It's a new government program, and at a time when there are well-regarded, existing, nonprofit, accredited, private land trusts that specialize in doing exactly this kind of thing. Why should Kern County start up a new government program in order to duplicate existing private structure? I think that's an issue that the county really does need to address. The staff report lists a number of unsuccessful attempts on the part of the county to find appropriate lands for this mitigation, and these efforts must have been a bit of a drain on county resources. How is this new program going to be funded? Are you going to have to hire more people in order to do this? This at a time when there are existing accredited land trusts, private, that can do this. Well, so there are a number of questions we have. We think that California Department of Fish and Wildlife should be involved here, and I certainly appreciate that you're pulling this from the agenda at this point, because we really haven't had the time to look into this. But there are a number of questions that have come up, and I hope that in the future these are addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Board members? Boss? Seeing none, this item has been withdrawn and will be reconsidered at a later date. Moving on, we get to adjourn until Tuesday, October 25th, 2016 at 9 a.m.